Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast. I am Fitz. On the other side of that screen is Ryan Gilbert, the managing editor of this endeavor, and our two incredible student. What are they? They're student employees. They're not interns. John was an intern in the summer. Mm-hmm. You know what all you lost this summer, John, was the title of intern.
I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, you don't have to clean Gilbert's car anymore.
I never
Grant
have.
Snowden and John Grove, two Manhattan guys hanging out with two guys who live in Manhattan. I don't know what that means. It means nothing. This is the podcast, the regular old school podcast in which our subscribers at GoPowercat ask us the questions on Wabash Station. We answer here for all to listen, and we're going to have fun with it.
Some damn good questions this week as well. I must say.
That's awesome. I saw the one that you mentioned earlier, and I think it's a pretty good question. Luckily, we have a very deep bench at GoPowercat, and we're delving into it because without one day of pregame work, we're doing two podcasts in a day. They're separate days when they appear. Got more podcasts this week, so we're trying to spread out the wealth, and the young guys are going to bring some good looks and charm to this. I don't believe that myself, so you can just whatever. Let's get going here. Question one. Not pointing fingers, Gills, but where did the coaches' media go wrong evaluating K-State's roster, coaching staff, and concluding they were a top 3 Big 12 team? I'll point fingers. In fact, on the daily delivery Sunday morning, I apologized for that. Look, this is a talented team. I know some of you want to say it's not talented. They got some dudes. What you can't measure all the time is the psychology of a team. That's much more difficult. And this team ain't got whatever it needs, at least right now. And tomorrow's daily delivery, or today's as you're watching this, is about quit coming up with excuses. Just get over it and take care of business. So I think it's more between here than anything else. And I also think while they're very good players, that doesn't mean they're playmakers, that they're going to come up and rise up. As I said on the Insiders, I'm going to steal from myself. If this was basketball, you would say they got no one who can go get a bucket when you need it. And they don't have bucket getters right now. Someone needs to step forward and do that. Maybe it'll be Ryan Davis. I don't know. He's coming back from injury. Maybe Lincoln Cure will be thrown into the mix, and he'll be one of those guys. And plus, Gills, I think they've got some bucket getters that they don't trust to do it. Remember when they ran Jace Brown on the end around thing, whatever that was, the Wildcat? Yeah, that was fun. What happened to that? So now he doesn't even run the jet sweep, which he's good at. And Avery ran the ball 3 times in the game on Saturday. And we think he's pretty good at running. I don't know. It's been so long. I'm forgetting. Gills, take over. I'm going to start ranting more.
It'd be one thing if the Jace Brown thing against Iowa State didn't work, but it worked. That was one of the best plays of the game. So you bring up a damn good point. But speaking of the Iowa State game, none of us here, fans, coaches, players, none of us understood the impact that game in Dublin would have on the team, mentally, physically, right? The loss didn't do this team any favors moving forward, and things have just continued to snowball. What exactly is the root cause? We could debate that all day long, but bottom line is, you know what, Fitz, I think me and you and probably everyone here tried to calm down the fan base and say the Ireland experience was a good one. And every fan that we know that went, all 4 of us were there. We had a tremendous time. But the lingering effects that this is continuing to have, I mean, guys, I just can't imagine if K-State had played SEMO in week 0 at the Bill. And then you have 2 more home games against non-Power 5 teams. I can't help but think how much differently things would be now. Again, like we've hammered home here on GoPowercat, that's not an excuse. We don't want to bring up any sort of excuse for this team, but none of us here, to answer the question, nobody seemed to understand the impact that game in Ireland would have if they lost. If K-State had won, who knows how much different things are right now, but we didn't understand the impact of that game.
Yeah, Gills, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's a fair question. And I've liked to look at it this way. This football team this year is a lot how I had expectations going into last basketball season. On paper, both those teams should have been really, really good. And so far it's off to just a rough start. And I think the biggest thing, and Fitz, you mentioned it earlier in your answer, it's the mental toughness. And I just don't think it's here on the squad right now. And me and John were talking about it on the Cat Attack, our student radio show earlier. You've got to have someone in that locker room who's going to step up and start making plays. And I don't think it's the coaching staff's problem, guys. I mean, you lose Connor Riley and Colin Klein, but this is a Big 12 championship caliber coaching staff. So it's not to say it's their fault. Do I want to hear them say we've got to perform better? Yes. And I saw Arizona State's head coach's presser yesterday. Would I like to hear that out of Kleiman maybe and just say we're not good enough right now? I would. So I think just get after the players. And Fitz, you asked a good question earlier. It might have been Kellis. What's your approach? Go easy on the guys or be hard on them? And I think the answer right now is go hard on them. Get some mental toughness going. And Jake Stevens said it. I don't care if we have a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. Just show some fire. Give the fans something to be excited about. Give them some hope. So this Friday night game is going to solve a lot of problems for me and where the direction of the season goes.
Grant, real quick, or John, before you go. Grant, you were in that locker room in 2022, correct?
Yeah.
After the Tulane loss. What was the message? Because a couple of players on Monday mentioned that Tulane game from 22, and they still won the Big 12, of course. What was Kleiman like then when it would be very easy to hit that panic button?
Kleiman, after the Tulane game, really wasn't too hard on us. It was kind of like, that's a good football team who just beat us, and they just played better than us today. And, I mean, as far as I can remember, it was a good week of practice leading up to Tulane, but just mental errors. And it always seemed – Kleiman's era always seems to have this just down game in the non-con, and I'm not sure why it happens. And it's kind of seemed to feel like that after a bye week too in the Kleiman era. So I'm not sure what the problem is, but, I mean, there was a player meeting, and we had guys like it was Felix, Adrian Martinez, Cade Warner, Will Howard that year that kind of stepped up in the locker room, told guys, we're fine. There's a whole lot of season left. And I imagine that's what happened, and we've heard it happen. So if Friday night things don't go well, I think this season could go in a very bad direction.
Yes. John.
Yeah, I mean, essentially at this point now, we're at the fork of a road in terms of where this team has Grant and as you guys as alluded to, just knowing where this program is certainly heading, and it's and people tend to bring up the Ireland curse, and it's not necessarily us. All right, we've been downplaying it, but I feel as of now, and it's not necessarily directed at us, but it feels in a way that it's become more of a norm that's been brought up, and now we're making it a bigger deal than it already has been. But as far as what's been happening, I mean, you're just seeing a lot of you're in some ways you're seeing a lot of exhilarating flashes that remind you about why there's a lot of players that have defined what K-State's future could be in a good way, but also in a very head-scratching way as well. Knowing how difficult things have just essentially become now. I mean, you look at the next few games here on the schedule. I don't feel any sliver of confidence if we don't see any of these guys continue to step up and show up every single day. And Brian Big B mentioned as well, just as far as the leadership aspect goes, when Austin Romaine was on the Iowa State sideline, nobody was there to go out there as well to defend him. I mean, that's a sign of concern. You gotta get guys that are able to step up for your teammates. And even what Chris Kleiman said during his first press conference, you got to lay it on the line for every single guy next to you every single day, whether it's at practice, whether it is in in-game situations as well. It just hasn't felt as if that the leadership aspect hasn't necessarily been there. But on top of that, I mean, some will point it towards the players as well, but you got to learn at some point and somewhere as well. It's kind of a poor way of answering that question, but
you're fine.
What you guys have put it. So.
I want to point one more thing out, and I don't point this out for the fans. I point this out for the team. That game in Ireland, K-State could have won it. You take that muffed punt out, who knows what happens? But even with that, K-State only lost by 3. And if you look at everyone's power rankings, including the Big 12 publishers right now, came out on Monday, Iowa State's number 1 in the power rankings of the conference. So is Kansas State really that far off? I know they've been stinky the last 2 weeks, but now they're going to play Big 12 opponents the rest of the way. And if they can't get up for that, they're lost. Maybe it's just the nature of this team. They don't breathe fire, but they better find a way to generate some heat because this ain't good and it doesn't look good. And a loss Friday night in Tucson, I agree with Grant, could finish them off. They go into an off week with that taste in their mouth. Luckily, they have UCF coming in, but UCF will see blood in the water too. I don't know, man. It's a big game.
Fitz, going off of what you said in the first part of that, with Iowa State being the best team in the Big 12, Kansas State was competitive in that game and shot itself in the foot too many times, couldn't get off the field on 4th down. I'm not trying to sunshine bump here, but Kansas State played a competitive team and lost by 3. Was one stop away from having the ball back in the 4th quarter, a chance to go tie it or win it. So Kansas State didn't drop. I mean, before the year, Kansas State was number 1 in ESPN's FPI. After the game against Iowa State, K-State remained number 1. So that really wasn't the problem. And this kind of ties back to my answer earlier. After what happened is the problem. K-State's at I think number 10 or 11 in FPI now. They've just plummeted after the Iowa State game. But after that loss, everything was still there. The response just has not been good in all ways.
You make a good point. It's the defense. They've got to get the offense off the damn field. They're letting prolonged drives occur. They're giving up 4th down conversions like they're candy. They have to have a terminator that's going to end possessions for them. Someone has to step forward and say, enough of this bull crap. We're getting them off the field. We're getting the ball back to the offense. Has the offense been great? No. Has the play calling been great? No. But if given the chance, they'll put up enough points for you to win. But the defense has not been able to stop teams when they need to be stopped. It's the 4th quarter. Let's get a stop. No, they just ran out the clock. They just took the ball and played keep away the rest of the game. This is frustrating because that's never been K-State. There's always been multiple players that would declare enough of this, we're getting off the field. And I don't know how you fix that because these are your players. This is the cards in your hand and you got to play with it. How was that? Was that a poker metaphor there, Gilbert? I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, but in poker, you don't have to play it. You can just fold.
I don't think that's an option. I hope not.
Yeah.
It's going to make a really boring season if they fold. Next up, from Fullis Nelson. That's another name I created, I think. Will the opponents throw any passes or just run it down our throats for the rest of the season? I see what you're saying, but this team's more than capable of giving up passing yardage too. I mean, I kind of fear that on Friday night. And I know what you're getting at. Army was a unique beast. And I said this on another one of the pods, maybe it was the Insiders, I don't even know anymore, that I feel like the guys are being so mechanical within the 4-man front now. It's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I am doing it. And instead of going out there and doing it and getting after it, yeah, I'm in the right spot and I'm going to attack the ball carrier. How many times did the Army quarterback push forward for first downs or a touchdown?
Backup.
against multiple
Backup
tackles.
quarterback.
What?
Backup
What's that?
quarterback, might you add?
I don't think anymore.
True.
That guy had fire in his eyes. He did. And they won.
You guys, I mean, in basketball, I got to bring up a little basketball here just a sec. People take plus minus with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
PFF for college football. If you want to take PFF's gradings with a grain of salt, I've got no problem with that. But K-State's top 4 rated defenders on PFF from that game were all linebackers. So pretty obvious just in that regard, through that lens, the loss, or I guess the inability to stop the run, which led to the loss, was on the defensive line. And that's a group that really needs to be better, especially given kind of the high upside potential for explosiveness that we were hearing about all throughout the offseason. I'm sorry, the absence of Ryan Davis does not at all give you a pass in that regard. And then in the middle, Damian, Uso, those guys are very seasoned. So, Fitz, you talked about somebody needing to go get a bucket. Who can go make that game-changing sack? That's going to have to come probably from the edge, if not just somewhere on the line. But I feel like the linebackers have been at least doing enough of its job. That group has done enough of its job to this point, or especially in that Army game. But you want to start stopping that run, I mean, up front in the trenches, it has to start there. And then on the backside, like, yes, there was only one letdown on the trick play, but how many times was there a potential for even a play like that? Like 9 times out of 10, Army ran the football. So nobody's off the hook. I don't want to praise that linebacker group too much, but in the trenches, defensive line has got to step up moving forward.
Grant, let me bend this question a little bit for you. Do you think they have the personnel to be running this 4-man front? I'm beginning to think they basically have taken what was Austin Moore's position off the field, a guy that ran around and made a lot of plays, and put a pseudo defensive end in at defensive tackle. I think that weakens you substantially.
I would have to agree with you. I think on paper, and we've been saying this a lot, on paper, the defensive line absolutely could have ran this 4-man front. On paper, you absolutely had the depth to do that, and so far you just haven't been able to pull it off. So I think going forward, we might have to see some changes. And Gilbert said, the absence of Ryan Davis doesn't give us any passes, right? Malcolm coming back maybe provides some more depth. But from what I've seen this season, I don't think we have the personnel to be running this 4-man front. Maybe we do need to put just an Austin Romaine back there and run around and make plays and get some stops. I mean, I don't think the defensive front played awful. I mean, Army didn't have any explosive. They didn't break away on any, triple option plays. I don't have the stat sheet in front of me. I think it was like 3.1 yards a carry maybe in that game. So there wasn't any long runs, right? They were just getting beat down. I mean, they couldn't get off the field. So we'll see what options we go with. But to answer the original question, I don't think our secondary is a much better option at the moment, to be completely frank with you. I think Fafita's a really good quarterback, and it was said in the press conference earlier they have 10 or 11 wide receivers on their depth chart. This is going to be a big test for this secondary, and it's going to, I'd hate to beat the dead horse, but Friday night's going to solve a lot of questions for K-State fans around the country. So we'll get an answer Friday night. Do I think we can keep running the 4-man front? Yes, but do we have to? No.
John?
Yeah, and to Grant's point as well, as far as the amount of depth that Arizona has a wide receiver, you also not only got 10 or 11 guys on that chart, but you also got 10 or 11 guys that have already caught a football as well in the past 2 games against Hawaii and Weber State. But, it's tough for any defense to hold up against a ball control attack, but you're surrendering 6 – I mean, Fitz, you already mentioned the wear downs in the second half, more so the third quarter and the fourth quarter, but you're surrendering when it matters most on the money downs and the third down and fourth down. K-State surrendered 6 of 7 on fourth down, and throughout the last 3 games, 10 of 12 all season. All right, you've got to blow up. You got to blow things up. You got to win up the line and get off the field. All right, that's the difference between flipping momentum and letting Army chew the clock out. And at that stage, it's not about scheme or play calling. It's about further execution, right? You got the right coverage. You're bringing the pressure, but you've got to finish, all right? You got to tackle and close the door, but instead the tackling became more, it wore down more so, and it slipped away. And right now, the defense it doesn't seem as if there's any clear answer or indication for why that is.
Agreed. Onward we go. Claws out, balls out. Can you imagine Louisville and the Ravens not running Lamar Jackson because he might get hurt? It's valid. And let's just ask this. Are the coaches being way too cautious with Avery Johnson? I get why they're being cautious. They have nothing proven behind him. I want to point out neither did Army when their starting quarterback got hurt, but that turned out okay. But I get it. I understand. In many ways, this offense is designed around some of his skill set. But I think it's malpractice to get to the end of a game and Avery Johnson has ran the ball 3 times in 46 plays. I just think that's malpractice. He's got to be part of this offense as a dual threat quarterback. I can't even fathom recruiting a guy of that stature in the recruiting world as a dual threat and then saying, you know what we need to do with him? We need to turn him into a pocket passer so he doesn't get hurt. What are we doing here? This makes no sense. He can throw the ball better this year. And yet he's asked to throw 3-yard outs repeatedly.
Short of the sticks.
Short of the sticks. I still can't get over. They had a 3rd and 10 and they ran a 3-yard out. Yeah, they got the first down. But converting 4th and 7 is less than ideal. You'd rather have it 4th and 3 or less. He has been effective getting the ball downfield. He has. Do it more often. Score points. I know that's crazy. I know it's nuts. Get aggressive with the play calling and the offense. There's nothing aggressive about this team. Attack Arizona. Make a mistake now and then because you're too aggressive. Not because you're too concerned that you're going to do something wrong, and thus you're not playing with much energy or focus. You're in the right spot, not doing a damn thing. I'm losing my mind, boys. Gils.
I'll be sure to comfort you out in Tucson, win or lose. But you talk about going out and recruiting Avery, and yeah, you got him for a reason. Use him, right? And going off of that, you know how much they're paying Avery Johnson, and not they directly, but Avery Johnson's getting an NIL. He's getting a lot of money. What's the point of that if you're not going to utilize him to his full potential? You know who the highest paid player on the Ravens is? Lamar Jackson went up against Josh Allen on Sunday Night Football against the Bills. Tremendous game. Now, Lamar only ran it 6 times, but he had 70 yards on the ground. That's over 10 yards a pop easily. So Lamar, and so Avery's not off the hook here, guys. Avery had 3 rushes for 10, 15 yards. I can't remember. It wasn't anything explosive. So Avery's not necessarily off the hook for that. Maybe you can blame play calling for not scheming it up better, but Avery does have to be more effective as a runner. You know, you got to call it both ways here. If you want to call for Avery to run the ball, that's totally fair, but Avery does have to be better. He's been great with some accurate passes on the ground, though. I think you got to be better. You know, against Iowa State, that 4th and 1, right? Couldn't pick up a yard. He does have to be better. But on the other side of the football, Josh Allen, highest paid player, 14 carries, only had 30 yards, but it was still 14 carries. And you're utilizing their top paid guy, the face of the franchise, the Avery Johnson, is involved in seemingly every play. So if Avery's not going to have a ton of carries, he does have to be impactful with those carries, right? If you want to keep him fresh, he's fresh legs, and you don't want to hurt him or risk any injury, well, then there's no reason not for Avery to have 5 or 6 yards, 7 yards a carry if it's something that you're hiding in the back of your playbook and it's your gadget play when it's only happening 3 times a game. So it's like a constant circle or like a cycle of, okay, if you're not running him, he needs to be effective. Or if you get what I'm saying. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, I was going to say that the coaches, the Kansas State coaches, are taking a weapon off the table. So the defense doesn't even really have to account for it. That's horrible. You should make them think he's running at us every time. So they have to stay true to their line of scrimmage and crowd the line and worry about Avery. They're not worrying about jack crap right now with the quarterback run game. At least use the Wildcat again. I was like, hey, they're going to the Wildcat and splitting Avery out. Why do you run that play if you're not building anything off of it? Hey, we ran it. Let's throw it away. There's so many other things you can do out of that exact same formation now that they think Jace is going to run the end around. Grant, you're up.
I mean, so many good points have been brought up, and I'll try and build off a couple of them. Fitz, you bring up, what do you have to lose? You're 1-2, and you're honestly on the verge of being either 3-0 and 0-3, but we're 1-2. That's where we're at. What do you have to lose? What happened to the Avery Johnson we saw against Texas Tech his sophomore year that scored 5 touchdowns? And to your point as well, Fitz, yeah, he got better as a thrower, but did he get worse as a runner? Because if I remember all offseason, the coach was talking about how much faster and stronger he got. So where's that version of Avery Johnson? Because we didn't lose him, right? I mean, it's right there for the taking. So why don't we just go out there and do it? So, and Gills, you brought up Lamar rushed, 6 times for 70 yards, and only a couple of those were design runs, guys. You can still scramble, and I don't know if Avery Johnson forgot how to do that, but I just haven't seen him use his legs like I thought we were going to after watching him in the freshman year games. He came in a couple times his sophomore season when he was scrambling. So I don't know what's going on there, but, I mean, can you blame the offensive line? Sure. I mean, is it a group that's meshing together? Are they going to get better? I hope so. I think so. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it all starts with Avery Johnson, right? We're paying him all this money. I would like to see him use his legs a little bit more because that's what he's recruited as. He was recruited as a dual-threat quarterback. He was not recruited as a quarterback, dual-threat quarterback. So, I don't know. I just want to see the coaching staff tap into what they have because this is a generational talent we have on this roster right now. It's a quarterback that we've, quite frankly, haven't had a really long time at Kansas State. The last one I can think of was really Colin Klein, but it would be a crime shame to let this guy dry out his last year or two just passing the football.
I think as Grant alluded to as well, I mean, you had Avery Johnson for a long time now, a generational QB in the books, or so-called Kleiman's project as well. I mean, what's missing right now is just a fearless runner. And I don't know if that just applies with the coaching staff. It could also apply with Avery as well. But you need a guy who'll stick on the foot and the ground on QB power, like we saw with the Army QB, Cale Hillam as well. All right, you got to hit the A gap, inside zone, or keep it on the speed. You got to punish the end man for over pursuing, right? Even if it means giving up some refinement in the passing game, it's not as if he was built on being the most complete passer as well. All right, that kind of presence changes the math in the box. And at times you got to slow down, but the backside pursued. And you got to run with bad intentions. You just got to run with bad intentions. It's not just about scrambling when the pocket breaks down. It's about being able to convert on 3rd and 2 when it matters most. Punish a defense or force an end man on the line of scrimmage to stay disciplined on a speed option. All right, those plays just tilt with the numbers in the box. You're right, opening up the RPO game, right? And keeping linebackers from flying downhill without any consequences. And without that threat, without that one single threat, the run game becomes easier to key on, and essentially this becomes a far more predictable and anticipated. You just need to get the guy who can keep the chains moving because on these check down ones, Fitz, I agree with you. It's getting to that point with me as well, and it makes the defense pay over pursuing as well. If you're able to just get far more creative with the playbook as well, and you gotta do it at this point to the most of your capabilities now that Avery Johnson's kind of a downhill slope now, right? I mean, he rode the bench in Will Howard's final year, and part of the reason he left. You can't just leave a generational QB on the bench for that long or else he'll transfer. So just a whole lot of things just not working out right now, but it's getting frustrating just not knowing that you got a QB who has been known for his run game so often and so much, yet the coaching has just decided. I mean, it could be both ways. I'm not going to discredit either party here, but it's just disappointing so far. But we're 3 years into this project, and we saw a good glimpse of it so far in his freshman and even his sophomore years, but it just hasn't come up more so in his junior year.
I don't understand what they're doing in their run game. What have been the two most impactful runs this year? One was by a receiver in the Wildcat, as we mentioned, and the other was when the North Dakota defense had to honor Avery's arm because he is showing he can throw the deep ball, and they ran off the entire secondary and opened it up for a game-changing and essentially winning run by Avery Johnson. 25 yards. Wasn't a really long run. 25 is not that long, but that saved the day. Just do that. Just get him out of the pocket so that he has the option to throw the ball or tuck it and run. He's not a pocket passer. He hates the pocket. He's uncomfortable. He can't see throwing lanes properly. He's got too much noise in front of him. And yet they do it over and over. It's insanity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he needs to be able to do it. I agree. But it's not the cornerstone of who he is as a quarterback. I'm getting fired up, guys.
Cole would be very proud of me for this one real quick. Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs, he makes his best plays when he's out moving, not when he's stationary. Tom Brady in the backfield. You got to cut him loose.
Got to let a play develop and even break down, because now the receivers can go to the open spot and try to get the ball, which is how Patrick Mahomes gets a lot of his yardage. Travis Kelce, who is Taylor Swift's boyfriend, if you didn't know that, helps with that too. Was Army a culture loss? And why does it seem coaches get credit for a good culture, but players are blamed for bad culture in sports? That is from Mr. Tossback, a.k.a. K-Ned. That is a fantastic question, and I really don't have an answer for it. It's almost too deep for my brain because he's right. I'm going to say it. If you have good culture wins, they've got a crappy culture right now, and that doesn't mean they're bad guys or they're fighting or a football culture. A good locker room feeds itself with energy, with accountability, with just flat out passion. They don't have that. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what's actually going on in there, but what goes out onto the field reflects none of that. And so I agree. This might be a culture issue, and it's just another way of putting that this team can't self-motivate.
You guys heard my spiel answer about the Iowa State game and the importance of that and the response from that and how that's been a root cause of so many issues. So I won't do that, but that is kind of my answer here. Yes. I mean, go back to the North Dakota win. An ugly, narrow win that you barely escaped from. If your culture, I guess if your locker room doesn't raise the bar and the sense of urgency isn't a million times higher after that, then that's not a good sign for a great culture. And, I said this a week ago, guys. I'll admit that I was wrong. I figured that Kansas State had a healthy enough locker room to bounce back and just dominate Army physically, be tougher than them ever. You name it. They should have just went out and dominated. Clearly that wasn't the case. And so I think it was absolutely the sign of not the best culture. And I know we've heard maybe some encouraging things from players, but at the end of the day, what right now have you actually seen that dictates there's a strong culture there? Watch what they do, not what they say, right? We haven't seen anything on the field that would hint towards good culture. But second part of the question here from KNet, right? I do want to say that I'm not happy, but it's good to see most fans kind of agree that Avery Johnson has not at all. I mean, he hasn't been great, but he's not the main cause for this.
No.
And with quarterbacks, a lot of the times, man, if they win, praise them. If they lose, it's all the quarterback's fault. So
Right.
Avery has been pretty solid, right? I said earlier he's got to be better as a runner, but the amount of drops his pass catchers have had, I could go on and on about things that are not in Avery Johnson's control. So, yeah, I mean, back to the main point, though, culture has to be much better.
I mean, I was in this locker room at one time, and the it's fine. I mean, the culture is good, but the biggest thing right now is this culture is just so much different than the Bill Snyder era.
Yeah.
And it's just a different era of college football. And
Yep.
I mean, the coaching staff's great, and we had player meetings, and it sounds like they have player meetings, but and I'll say it again. If Friday night goes poorly, I am really concerned, because right now my biggest concern with this football team is how badly do they want to play football, or how badly are they just here for the NIL checks? And that's the biggest issue with me with culture. Who just wants to play football? And I love the answer Braden Lofton gave earlier. Right now we're playing not to lose, right? We just need to let loose, have fun, and go win a football game. And that's my biggest thing with this team, this culture, this coaching staff, the players on the field. How badly do they want to play football? Just block out the outside noise and just go win a football game. So I know it's a pretty short answer, but I just think this culture is so much different than previous years, and it's a completely fair answer and question. So
Yep.
That's all I got there.
John, you are our culture. You are our spirit. Answer this question now with great spirit.
A great spirit. I shall certainly do so as well. Don't know what gave me the title, but a healthy program can't be just 18 to 22-year-olds left on their own. It also has to come from a coach micromanaging every detail, and in some ways that could be the case, but in some instances it could also be a little bit too much as well. That's what I've noticed during some instances with this K-State squad and with this coaching staff, just kind of micromanaging a little bit too much. All right, not allowing, as we mentioned just recently for a second, Avery not getting him a chance to become as mobile as he can be possibly, but more towards this question, the best teams have a balance, and the head coaches often set the culture, they set the standards, and the accountability as well. And I think for the most part, there's a lot of K-State players that can take that accountability, and the players take ownership and they try to enforce those expectations in the locker rooms as well. And honestly, this is kind of one thing that my dad's had to deal with as well as a former volleyball coach, but when coaches lean too hard on the player-led label without defining it, it can kind of create a little bit of a buzzsaw as well, like the old play hard count as well, right? It doesn't mean the previous coach failed, but it does open up a question of whether there's still a healthy fear or respect for the head coach as well. I'm not pinpointing anybody, but I mean, the staff often knows the pulse of a locker room, and they got to make sure the leadership is heading in the right direction as well. And maybe that's also some self-indictment on the players as well, but it's got to come from somewhere for sure.
Very good.
Just real quick, there's not enough Brendan Motts, Austin Moores, Felix. I could go on and on about a DJ Giddens, a 2-star or a walk-on, or
Daniel
that's the
Green.
K-State way, or even just Kansans. I know there's Avery, and there's of course guys that are starters, but that's kind of maybe one of the problems here. And with all due respect to Tibbs and Bradley, and there's been some solid transfers that have come in here to this point, but it's different, right? This is different in terms of the way some of your top end starters are. I think you're missing one or two of those leaders in the locker room, and that's something that I guess I would keep in mind with some of the struggles. They don't have some of those guys.
I'm just going to throw this out there. This is the first season of the 105 roster limit. Granted, they didn't have to get there, but the NCAA or the courts came up with that so late that K-State had already done it. Is the missing piece of this culture about 10 kids from Kansas or 15 kids from Kansas or surrounding states that probably won't play at all, but they bust their ass every day in practice. They make it important to give all that effort and set a tone. That's really what's changed about this program. Mostly the same frontline players and the same coaches, but the practices are less crowded and there's less guys out there putting in the sweat equity, knowing they won't play. I think it's a big part of the K-State culture. Here we go. The 2-minute drill. We've got 2 minutes as a team here to answer this.
Are we doing okay? I omitted the 2-minute drill, and this was a normal question, but we have gone long. So
what?
Yeah, this is a good. I thought this was a normal question.
We'll go do whatever we want to here.
If you're on Wabash Station, don't forget 2-minute drill questions. There was like no real good ones that I found. So anyways.
Calls out, balls out once again. Can we come to the conclusion that the extra strength and conditioning was a mistake? The guys are constantly gassed or injured while looking sloppy. I don't know if it was the conditioning that did it. I think losing the practices might have been the issue. I don't think the guy, look, don't discredit the defense because they were gassed in the second half. They were left on the field for, was it 41 plays in a row?
But that's their own fault for being gassed. They couldn't.
In some ways, yes, but it wasn't their fault that special teams did something remarkable and returned a kick for touchdown back on the field. It wasn't their fault. Special teams did something incredibly crappy and gave up what turned out to be a freak onside kick. I mean, those things were the issue.
Yeah, Fitz, you know what you're doing here, though. I rarely disagree with my boss, but right now you're making excuses. You're not making excuses.
No, I'm saying they legitimately had to be gassed at that point. It's not like they were out of shape. No defense plays 40-plus plays in a row. And, yeah, they could have gotten off the field by not giving up a fourth down, but they also would have benefited, instead of a touchdown on a kickoff return, a 6-play, 2-minute drive, just a couple minutes for a touchdown, might have changed the entire fate of that game. Just saying.
I agree.
You went with an I agree. After all that,
well,
after the 2-minute drill thing, you threw out the I agree.
My job security is low after disagreeing with you, so I had to say that I agree. But
Grant,
well,
hold on. He's now
he's
going to expand.
The first 15 play drive, I mean, that is all on the defense.
Yep.
If you want to say stuff from special teams and all what have you, them being gassed, I can listen to that. But that first 15 play drive, you still had enough gas in the tank to get off the field on a number of those key plays.
Yep, you're right.
I can honestly agree with both of the sides you guys are making. Fitz,
No, you got to agree with Gills, not Fitz. Come on.
I mean, you guys are both right in your own sense. Like, it was a freak accident that we just happened to have our first good special teams play of the year, and then defense get back out there, and then they score again, and then they get an onside kick, defense get back out there. Technically, the defense did get off the field, but they allowed points. And so, Gills, that's where you come in. You got to get off the field and force a punt, or heck, even 3. So you guys are both right. And I think losing True so far to me has been bigger than what I thought it was going to be. Yep. Because when I think back to when I was on the team, the two biggest motivators / yellers on the sideline to just get some fire in the bellies of the guys was Coach True and Connor Riley, and neither of them are here anymore. Ray is a phenomenal strength and conditioning coach. Does he have the same fire that Coach True does? No, nobody does. So I think the extra strength and conditioning could have been a mistake without Coach True. Do I think it's the reasoning for being gassed or losing a couple games early in the season? No. I think that's just flat out being out-coached and the players on the field just getting burnt and just gassing themselves for not being to get off the field. So it's a weird question. I think I kind of answered it both sides of it, but that's what I got.
Look at Grant being the neutralizer, man. You just love to see it when one boss is fighting a talking monkey. That's always a great sign, to say the very least. But, you combine this with the thinner walk-on presence pushing the scholarship guys, and the end result is a less competitive, less battle-tested 2 deep, right? K-State's best lines were forged day-to-day reps where you got hungry walk-ons, which made everyone grind, right? That edge is dulled with fewer practices and less competition from below. And right now, Chris Kleiman just faces the double whammy of trying to install his identity and technique under stricter NCAA guidelines, calendars, and a talent pipeline that's not to the par of the big time schools either. So it's a lot. It's in some ways as well. It's kind of lacking the classic underdog attitude checks compared to what we've seen from teams like Iowa State. But I guarantee you, but then a walk-on presence and additional guys being cut off the team. While in some ways the practices I've heard, it's probably even a little bit more of an extra load for them to take as well, knowing that they'll have additional reps during those practices too.
I've got one final thought here. I know we're running late, but
yeah,
with conditioning, if you go out to Utah in November and you outlast a team like that on the road, and you come back home and out tough, make the play at the end of the game against Colorado, then maybe it's not a mistake, right? Because that's why Kleiman made this move. He felt that last season in 2024, right, they ran out of gas. So to this point, it's been a failure, of course. But maybe later on in the year, you can salvage this argument by saying, hey, the team did have enough gas in the tank later on as the year progressed. But we'll wait and see.
Friday night in Tucson, it's a huge game for the K-State football program, not just this team. It is a new era of college football, and can K-State keep up with it? I think Friday night's going to tell us a lot about where this team is headed and maybe where the program's headed, but I'm not going to overreact to it either. Sometimes, Utah proves it, a great program has a bad year because of circumstances or whatever. It just happens. So we'll find out. We'll be there to cover the game, and we will report back what we see, which hopefully will be a Wildcat victory. Well, actually, it will be a Wildcat victory, right? Yep. Gilbert pointed that out to me. The Wildcats will win. It just will be the red and blue ones, ironic, or the purple ones. Honestly, I'm really troubled by Wildcats being red and blue. My brain can't handle that.
Well, red-blue makes purple. So that's even more confusing.
Yeah, I know, but man, I'm looking forward to this game. It is enormous. The truth is, mathematically, a loss doesn't mean much. You can still get work done in the Big 12. But spiritually, you lose this one, go into an off week, you're in big trouble.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.